Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Ghost and Ghouls. My name is Fetch Arbuckle, and welcome to the spookiest show around, bringing you the creepiest tales to keep you up at night. If you enjoy my show, give the bell a click to be notified when I go on air. Every Sunday we are live. Now, this evening we have a very special guest joining us for tonight's show. Without further ado, let's welcome our sarcastic friend, Maskino.
Hello, Fetch. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here this evening. Super cool.
It's an honor having you here, friend. Now, before we get into the show, do tell us about yourself and what you do.
Let's see about me. Well, let's see. I'm a guy, and I have a mask, and that is about it. I know. You would think that someone as interesting as I would have more to say about myself, but, I really don't. I guess some people like to hear me talk. I don't know. But no, that's simply it. I was just like, hey, there's a whole lot going on. Let me just throw this mask on and change my name, and that is it. And you might be asking, well, what about before that? There's nothing before that. You should not ask that. That's very rude of you. How dare you?
That's absolutely wonderful. Quite sarcastic, but whatever. Now, I wanted to talk to you about Cryptown. Our mayor as well. Rather interesting, to say the least.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. He's an ancient being known as Smog the Dragon, and rather one you don't want to piss off.
I see. Also, did you hear that? It sounded like if a gecko got really pissed off, but the gecko was 1,000 foot tall.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I wonder who that could be.
Fetch, get out here now!
If I don't open the door, maybe he won't know I'm here.
There's no more hiding. I'm tired of all the waiting.
To everybody watching at home, don't piss off a dragon that could possibly kill you and everybody you know and love.
Where are you? Where are you? Fine. I'll go now. But you better have the rent by the end of the week. Don't make me come back.
You see? What did I tell you? If I don't open the door, he won't know I'm here. Works every time. Alright, I'm back. Now we can start. Alright, folks. It's time to dive into tonight's stories. So turn off the lights. Get comfortable. And let's sink into the tales that await you. Take it away, Maskino.
Hello. This thing happened to me a few months ago. I just need to share it with somebody. It all started at my friend's party. He's an artist who rented out a loft in the industrial part of the town. If you can picture what a place in Detroit would look like in the 1920s, that's what the area looks like. Bunch of old turn-of-the-century factories crammed into 10 blocks. Most of them are abandoned. So I partied a little too hard that night and decided to crash on a couch at the loft. I woke up around 4 a.m. The sun wasn't out yet, but you could still make things out in the dim blue light. I went to the bathroom, carefully tiptoeing around the people that were passed out on the floor. As I was taking a piss, I tiptoed to look out the window, and I saw the panorama of a deserted urban decay. I remembered how much I liked places like this. It was so dark and devoid of life and strangely serene. So I went back to the couch and tried to fall asleep. Well, after about 45 minutes of staring up at the ceiling, I decided I didn't want to be there any longer. So I swallowed my pride and decided to take a walk. So I swallowed my pride and decided to wake my girlfriend up and beg her for a ride, since walking around the vacant streets at this time was it was just not an option. Being an awesome girlfriend, she was totally cool with it, and told me she would be there in about an hour and a half, and that she would give me a call when she was outside. My phone promptly died 10 minutes later, so I decided I would sit by the window and watch for her car. I sat there for a while and my eyes started to get heavy, and I began to doze off. A crashing noise outside woke me up. It wasn't loud, but just enough to snap me into reality. I looked out the window and scanned the area, but didn't see anything. Across the street from the loft near a mountain of garbage bags and one of those enormous dumpsters, I could see a computer and a monitor stashed against the floor. I hadn't seen one of those before. It hadn't been there before. When my girlfriend arrived, I went downstairs and greeted her. Just as I was about to get in the car, I remembered a friend of mine who had blown out his power supply. So I decided to take a walk over to the dumpster and see what I could salvage. The monitor was worthless, but the tower seemed to have suffered almost no damage. So I put it in the trunk and we drove off. About a week had passed and I had completely forgotten about the tower until my girlfriend called to let me know that it was still in the trunk and that she wanted it out. That night I brought it home. Before I took it apart, I decided to hook it up to my monitor to see if it still ran. And to my surprise, it did. It ran Windows XP and it looked like it had been wiped clean. I decided to do searches for words like tits and pussy in hopes of finding some secret stash of weird deviant porn the previous owners might have forgotten about. A morbid curiosity, I guess, but the search came up nothing. Searched for pictures, nothing. Then I searched for movies and one file came up. It was a .avi inside of a folder titled Barbie, hidden in the Windows System 32 directory. So I played it. Now, this is where it gets disturbing. The movie was about an hour long and was made up of what seemed to be like raw exported footage. The footage was of this woman sitting in a chair and talking against a white backdrop. I skipped through most of the movie. It was about the same continuous shot. Then I decided to sit through the footage to find out what she was talking about. 15 seconds into the footage, the audio goes completely bad and her voice is drowned in by this harsh static. I couldn't make out a thing. So I imported the footage into Final Cut and tried to mess with the levels to isolate her voice. It helped a little, but I still couldn't hear what she was saying. Now, I was intrigued by now, and I began to really pay attention to her face and body language. It seemed that she was being asked some kind of questions, because she stops at times to listen and then continues talking. About 15 minutes into the footage, her face begins to redden and contort as if the questions are bothering her. She continues to answer them anyway. Shortly after, she begins to cry. She sobs hysterically for the duration of the film. One of the few words I could lip read was skin. She repeats this word many times throughout the footage, and at one point she even pulls at the skin from her arm and mouths the word. She seems to be unhappy with her skin. There is much more I have to get off my chest, but it's getting late and I can't go on, so I will share the rest tomorrow. God save my soul. It kept on building and building, and about 40 minutes in, she's crying so hard she can barely look at the camera. She stops talking at this point, and the rest of the footage is just her crying with her head down. Oddly enough, she doesn't get up or move. The screen just fades to black. I was fucking dumbfounded. I played the whole thing through many times that night, but I couldn't find any inflections or nuances in her movement that would reveal anything else that was going on, so I felt dissatisfied. I wanted to know more. That's when I noticed that there was about 10 minutes left on the timeline after the screen went black, and about 2 minutes in there was more footage. The footage was extremely shaky, almost unwatchable, and depicted a pair of legs walking along train tracks. My guess is that the camera was accidentally left on as it was being carried somewhere. The person in the footage walks along the train tracks for about 6 minutes and then turns into the forest and walks over what looked like foliage flattened by a piece of plywood. The person continues on this makeshift plywood road until the movie clip ends. Now my heart started beating with excitement because there were train tracks just a few miles away that looked very similar to the one in the video. I had to check this out. I called up my friend Ezra. He's 6'4", 250 pounds of mostly muscle. I convinced him to go on a little adventure with me. I'm no pushover myself, but I felt like if I was going to go wandering into the woods looking for God knows what, extra muscle couldn't hurt. This whole idea of investigating this video had me so excited I couldn't sleep. The next morning was a sunny Saturday. I took my flashlight, my camera, a 7-inch K-bar with a matte black finish and serrated edge, and I went to pick up Ezra. When I got to his house, he wasn't even awake. So when I woke him up, he pretty much told me to fuck off. I was already packed up and I had mentally prepared myself to do this, so I decided to go through it without him. I parked my car at the train station, took my stuff, and hopped onto the tracks. After walking for about 2 hours, I saw a broken piece of plywood, and my knees almost buckled with excitement. I searched the nearby foliage, and there it was, a little plywood trail leading into the forest. I walked slowly along the trail, paying close attention to everything. I would stop occasionally, kneel down, and listen for anything or anyone, but it was so quiet. This was one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done. I didn't know what to expect at the end of this trail. The dense tree line gave way into a little island of grassy fields. And then I saw it. A house being consumed by the forest. From the looks of it, no one had lived there in maybe 20, 30-ish years. I got my camera and snapped a few pics. A few yards away from the house was a tool shed made of rusty sheet metal. I just sat there among the trees for a while, absorbing everything. I didn't want to go into the open field. I had this bad feeling that something would see me. It took me a while to muster the courage to go up to the house, but while the door was partly opened, I pushed on it with my flashlight and was relieved that the inside was actually very well lit. So I put my flashlight away, got my camera, and took a few more pics. There was no furniture or anything. The floor was riddled with bricks and wood and rubble, and some of the walls had huge holes in them. When I went in further to explore, I saw some things I didn't pay much mind to in that moment, but now that I think about them in hindsight, now they greatly disturb me. This was the first thing that seemed a little odd. At one of the doors in the first room, the first thing that seemed a little odd was one of the doors in the first room that I presume led to the basement seemed a little too new to be in this house. It also was the only door in the house that was locked. Also, I made my way up to the second floor. I saw some chairs and a fold-up table that also seemed a little too new to be there. But what disturbed me the most, for some reason, was the bathroom. The dust on the mirror had been wiped away, and in the bathtub I saw a clear plastic tarp that had water droplets on it. When I presume it was washed clean. That's when I heard something moan really loud, and that's when I jumped the fuck out the second-story window and ran back to the tracks. Halfway there I realized the moaning was most likely a water pipe expanding or contracting, and in that little moment of relief, I gave into the horror which I felt when I wondered why the water would be running on in an abandoned house in the middle of the fucking woods. It's been a little more than 2 months since that's happened, and I haven't gone back there. Nor do I plan to.
Well, that wraps up today's interesting show. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Also, special thanks to Maskino for joining me this evening. If you guys want to give his channel a visit, I highly suggest you do. But if you don't, he doesn't really care either. I'll link his info in the description below. But that's all for now. Thank you for tuning in and tune back in next Sunday, joining us as Mistress of Creepypasta. My name is Fetch Arbuckle.
And my name is Maskino.
Signing off.